Hello, welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel, we look at microfiche from the past, old newspaper articles in the public domain. We're looking at them with our modern eyes, our modern perspective, and see what we can learn from them. On this microfiche time capsule, we are looking back at the improvement era from January 1960. And this article is entitled, Howard William Hunter, Apostle from California. So we are working on the first presidency at the moment. And I'm really excited about this one. So, most people would probably not think of this, but you know how most people have what they consider kind of, most members of the church, I should say, would have what they consider like their prophet, like the one that they remember the most, that they remember first, not necessarily the most, but like the first one that they can recall in their own mind. This is mine. And I think that most people don't have Howard W. Hunter as quote unquote their prophet because he was in office for such a short time. I think it was 9 months. It was a very, very short time. And think of all the other prophets that have been in for a short time. Lorenzo Snow was in like 3 years-ish. And then Joseph Fielding Smith was in like also around 2.5, 3 years, along that same amount of time. And then Harold B. Lee was in for 1.5 years. And so, it was such a short time. They just had so many like changes. But then Howard W. Hunter came along and he was very old. And he was only in for 9 months. So he literally had the shortest time as a president of the church. And none of the other ones were as short as his. So that's why I think it's so rare for someone to remember him as kind of their prophet. Now, the reason I remember this is because I was 12 years old and I was living in like this greater Seattle area at the time. I don't live there anymore, so not trying to dox myself, but Howard W. Hunter came and visited the area. And we went to see him, and I think it was at like SeaTac, kind of a stadium. It was something like that. I don't remember exactly where it was, but it was packed. There were so many people there. And I went thinking how cool it was to see a prophet. And I don't remember if he was a prophet at the time or if he was, it was like just before. But he became president of the church. But I do remember seeing him, and I remember seeing how old he was and how really quite frail he was. He was walking very slowly. He talked slowly and deliberately. But I remember the feeling I had at the time. And I think that most people have this moment. I keep saying people, members of the church, have this moment at some point. And that person ends up being, quote unquote, your prophet. And so this one's mine, and it's an unusual one. Most people don't say this one, so it kind of makes me feel a little special. And no, I wasn't very old at the time. I was, like I said, I was 12, but it is something that has stayed in my memory, and that might tell some people how old I am if you can find out when that was. But I just feel like really close to this person, and I feel like he's special to me. So, what do I know about him? I know that his father was not a member of the church. So he grew up in a part member family. And he wasn't baptized, I believe, until he was like 12 or something. I can't remember. I hope they say it. I could be wrong about that. We'll double check. But, he was originally planning on going like the all business route, and then he kind of had a spiritual awakening and decided to go on a mission, something like that. I believe that's him. Anyways, I'm not 100% sure about any of these details. I want to say he fought in World War II, but I think a lot of people did. So I'm not sure if that's like a special thing, but I'm really interested in learning more about his actual life. I cannot remember for the life of me what he did for a living. So I am interested to find out. I believe he didn't have that many children, so he wasn't a Russell M. Nelson with 10. I believe, I don't know, 3 maybe, something like that. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this one. So this one is special to me for so many reasons. So anyways, let's take a look at the article. So it starts out, this is the cover of the issue with a picture of him in front of the temple. I think he looks a little bit serious here, just this, very, I guess he's trying to look all business or something. Yeah, that's okay. And then here's some more pictures. This is Elder Howard William Hunter. And that's when he was younger, of course. It looks like he has a little bit of a crossbite. His chin isn't quite straight, yeah? I could be wrong, but that's what it looks like to me. Clara May Jeffs Hunter is his wife. She looks kind to me. She has very small eyes, but so do I. So the little hooded eyes, I can relate. But she looks kind to me. I like the look of her. Howard, near the age of 8, left with his sister Dorothy and his dog. He's on the left? Is that right? Huh. I'm not sure. Or do they just mean the picture on the left? Okay. No, yeah, I think the sister's the one closer to the dog, yes. All right, this one. As a child, Howard loved his pets. He is shown here at 8 months of age. Oh, with his dog in the barrel, I guess. 8 months? Like, what is that, some sort of, impromptu high chair? I don't know, that's weird. Oh yeah, I forgot he played an instrument. Is he a saxophonist? Soon after graduating from high school, Howard Center took this orchestra on a tour of the Orient. Yeah, he was a saxophonist. Cool. I forgot that. I feel like I knew that at one point. And here he is as a baby. Oh, he was so cute. Look at those little ears. Ah. He's a skinny baby. I have 2 children. One was a skinny baby and one was a chunky monkey. I called her that. So I had one of each. But yeah, that's a skinny baby. That's what a skinny baby looks like. My oldest was a skinny baby, so you can't get them to gain weight. You could keep trying, but eventually they will. And here he is at age 5. He has little serious eyes, a little bit of a serious tendency. And then Howard was the 2nd Eagle Scout in the state of Idaho. Interesting. The 2nd Eagle Scout. Okay, that's cool. All right, so those are from the first 2 pages. But let's take a look at the article, yeah? It was October conference time, 1959. From many parts of the church, the saints had assembled to participate in the glorious spirit of the conference, to hear counsel and instructions from the leaders of the church, and incidentally to see the man selected to fill the vacancy in the Council of the 12 Apostles, occasioned by the appointment of Brother Henry D. Moyle to the first presidency. There are in the church today approximately 215,000 men who hold the Melchizedek priesthood, and all the church is a training ground in which these men may prove themselves worthy of positions of responsibility in God's kingdom. Okay, I know the statistics are way off from today. We have 8 million members of the church today, when at the time of recording this. It's more than that, I think. 8.5 maybe. And obviously we have way more priesthood holders today. Just as a pure guess, I would throw the number out there. 2.5, 3 million? Yeah. But 215,000 at the time, yeah? So funny. There are, for example, some 870 men serving in stake presidencies, and in the 290 stakes of the church. I have no idea what the statistics are for that today. That's so funny. Some 3,480 are members of stake high councils. About 7,500 are in bishoprics. Thousands of others serve in missions and branch presidencies, in the presidencies of priesthood quorums, as patriarchs, as chairmen of genealogical committees, as auxiliary workers. Which of all these men would be chosen? From Arcadia, California, Howard William Hunter, president of Pasadena Stake, had come to conference as he had done for the past 10 years. Following the first session on Friday morning, he was handed a note asking him if he would come between sessions to the office of President David O. McKay, who greeted him warmly and told him that the Lord had spoken, that he was being called to serve as one of his special witnesses. Can you imagine? Like, you're not expecting it. At least they told him before announcing it. In the past, they used to just announce it first. I remember the story of how George Albert Smith was called, and that's kind of what happened. He didn't even happen to be there. And they're like, and we'd like to present George Albert Smith, you know. He's like, wait, what? Found out after the fact. You know, that did happen back then. And today, it's, you know, a little more organized, I think. But yeah, can you imagine just showing up to conference and then getting a note being like, David O. McKay wants to talk to you. Oh, and you're just a stake president, yeah? You're like, oh, gosh, what does he want? And you go to his office, and it turns out that he's calling you to the Quorum of the 12. Wait, what? You know? I mean, that would be my, reaction, but yeah, anyways, I think that's funny. President Hunter responded by telling President McKay that he would be happy to serve in any calling that came to him, that he felt very honored in the call, that he would do his very best to fill it worthily, and that he sustained the prophet with all his heart. Leaving the church office building, President Hunter telephoned Sister Hunter, who was in Provo at the home of a son. Oh, was he at BYU? He might have been. After he had told her of the call, and she remarked how wonderful it was, neither of them could speak further, but they couldn't. They both just sat, clutching the telephone receivers. Very few words, but much love and many feelings traveled over the wire before they said goodbye. It's really sweet. The following day in conference, Howard William Hunter was sustained by the body of the church as a member of the Council of the 12. At any point in his life, a man is the sum total of the experiences he has had, the decisions and sacrifices he has made. Numerous circumstances can be observed in the life of Howard William Hunter which have helped to mold his character and make him great, and which permit him to bring into his new position a spotless character, a driving ambition, a dauntless faith, a brilliant mind, and an understanding and wisdom which have made him the Lord's choice to perform the tremendous tasks that lie ahead. Wow. We've talked about this because that's basically weighing a person in the balance, yeah? Like all of the things that shape and mold their character and show their character. Like, it's not necessarily that something has influenced them to become the way they are, but that it's something that has allowed them to show who they are. Yeah. The ancestors of Howard's mother came from Denmark, okay? Great-grandfather Morten Rasmussen was born in Brandekild, Odense, Denmark in 1834. When he was 17 years of age, he was taking a load of farm produce to market and gave a ride to two young men who turned out to be Mormon missionaries. They introduced him to the restored gospel, and he was subsequently converted to the church and baptized in 1851. 3 years later, he immigrated to the United States, crossing the plains to Utah by ox team. In 1858, he moved to Sanpete County, where he became one of the original settlers of Fort Mount Pleasant, and was prominent in farming and business affairs in Mount Pleasant until his death in 1885. Irrelevant, but let's keep going. Hang on a second. I mean, since we're talking about ancestry, it's a little annoying. I get annoyed about ancestry because it's not really that important, in my opinion. But, yeah. It does show that on his mother's side, he came from a legacy of members of the church, yeah? Alright. This is his son Richard serving in the South Australian mission. And then this picture, I'm assuming he wasn't present at the time. And that's why they had this picture. Brother and sister Hunter and their son John, daughter-in-law Louine Barry, and grandson Robert Mark. Okay, so they only had two boys, is that correct? So they had Richard and John. John and Richard? Mm-hmm. Mother and father Hunter, John W. and Nellie Rasmussen. Okay, so those are his parents, yes? Yeah, Rasmussen is a Danish name, yeah. Okay, so cool. And then this last one for these couple pages. On a world tour in 1958, elder and sister Hunter and son John visited the Taj Mahal in India. Well, I was close on the number of kids. Like I said 3, and he had 2. Okay. So 2's fine. I mean, there are a couple that we have talked about lately that had 2 children. Marion G. Romney and Harold B. Lee both had 2 children. Harold B. Lee had 2 girls. Marion G. Romney had 2 boys. You know, Howard W. Hunter had 2 boys. So there you go. Spencer W. Kimball had 4, I believe. But yeah, so there you go. 2 kids is good. I have 2 kids. All right, moving on. Howard's maternal great-great-grandfather, Christian Andersen, was born in Svenstrup Soro, Denmark in 1796. A tailor by trade, he was converted to the church by early missionaries to Denmark and was baptized in 1853. 9 years later, he left the home of his birth for the church, crossed the plains by ox team, and settled in Sandpeat Valley. He also resided in Mount Pleasant until his death in 1884. Okay, so those are his 2 great-grandparents, yeah? The people on Howard's paternal mother's side were of Puritan extraction. Some of these ancestors settled in Plymouth Colony, Massachusetts, as early as 1621 to escape the religious persecutions of England. He descends from William Palmer. Okay, I'm gonna go through this part really quickly, okay? He descends from William Palmer, Henry Rowley, Stephen Batelder, Robert Bodfish, John Wing, and other early founders of the nation through the Hatch and Noel families. 3 of these men were also progenitors of the prophet Joseph Smith. Yeah, if you go back far enough, you're related to everybody, yeah? Brother Hunter's paternal great-grandparents were Scottish. Great-grandfather John Hunter was born in Paisley, Scotland in 1825. He early became a prominent manufacturer of dress goods, cloth, and Paisley shawls. In 1863, 3 years after he joined the church, he migrated to the United States, settling in Salt Lake Valley. He engaged in the freighting and produce and supplies to and from Fort Bridger, Wyoming, Helena, Montana, Virginia City, Nevada, and other western settlements. He died in Ogden, Utah in 1903. Okay, now we're getting to Howard W. Hunter. When the baby who was to be named Howard William Hunter was born to John William and Nellie M. Rasmussen Hunter in Boise, Idaho, November 14th, 1907, there was but one small ward in the city. Southern Idaho had long been Mormon country, but the northerly part of the state in those days had a very small Latter-day Saint population. Many of Howard's friends and associates were not members of the church, and as a boy he learned to appreciate the gospel for what it is. Howard was a sweet and lovable child, as his parents and his early pictures testify. How can your pictures testify that you were sweet and lovable? I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know. All I got from them is that he was kind of thin as a small child, and that he filled out a little as he got a little older, and that he loved his dogs. That's all I got from that. He was a boy who was good to his father and mother. That's good. He made friends easily. He loved animals. His mother and father recall that he brought home at least a dozen stray cats. And when at home, he was seldom without his pets. Dogs, cats, rabbits. That's kind of cute. I love people who love animals. It's usually a good sign. It shows that they are, kind of natural caretakers. Yes. Young Howard early developed a spirit of independence, and very early in his life he learned to take care of many of his own financial needs. Okay. While just a boy, he sold newspapers, worked in a newspaper office, delivered telegrams, framed pictures in an art store, and did various odd jobs in a department store. During his high school years, he worked summers and after school in a drugstore. Okay, so he was quite hardworking, yeah? You notice also with all of their talk about ancestry, they didn't talk about his father almost at all, except for the fact that his great-grandparents and stuff were some of the founding fathers. Okay, you know what I mean? Because they didn't mention that his father wasn't a member. Where did his father learn about the church? Well, because he married a member. That's basically it. All right. In high school, he was captain of the ROTC and achieved the rank of major, the highest rank obtainable in that organization at the time. Yeah, that is really high. Can you become an officer just by going to ROTC? I guess so, because clearly he did it, so wow, that's impressive. It's not quite the same as the military rankings, but I don't know very much about ROTC, so Reserved Officers Training Corps. That's what I know about it, is that it's there to train people to become officers. But I didn't know that you could get a rank of an officer while in it. That's a little surprising. Howard's mother was a stalwart in the church, serving as a teacher in the auxiliaries, as president of the primary, and as president of the Young Women's Mutual Improvement Association. But his father was not then a member. That's what I said, yeah. Great-grandfather Hunter had not affiliated with the church after he came to Utah, and Howard's father had not been taught the principles of the gospel during his youth. So it was Howard's mother who was to give most of the guidance and encouragement as far as the church was concerned. It was a joyful day for the Hunter family when the father accepted the gospel and was baptized in 1927. Yeah, I remember him talking about something about how his father, after he had become an apostle, had come to him and been like, "Oh, I want to go through the temple. Like, will you perform my sealing?" And it was the first time he had gone to the temple, and so his parents were able to be sealed when he was an apostle. Like, can you imagine? That's so cool. Yeah, gives you chills. A few incidents from Howard's early life will demonstrate his devotion to the church and the principles of the gospel. When he was 12 years of age, the ward in Boise decided to build a new chapel. Okay. The announcement was made in a meeting, and ward members were asked to pledge what they could afford toward the new building. The first person to rise to his feet was a deacon, young Howard Hunter, who completely on his own pledged $25 toward building a new structure. $25 was a lot of money to a 12-year-old boy in 1919. Yeah, I'm going to do a quick inflation calculation. So 1919 is the same buying power as $484.54. Can you imagine being like, "Hey, we need to raise some money for to build a new chapel," and the 12-year-old stands up and says, "I pledge $485. And the whole ward looking at him like, "What? Isn't that everything you have?" Basically, yes. Gosh. On one occasion, when Howard applied for a job at a business house in the city, the owner, very much impressed by the boy, offered to give him a position. It would have meant, however, that another boy would have been released. Okay, but Howard declined the offer, saying, "No, I don't want to take some other boy's job." Okay, yeah, that's admirable, yeah? And be like, "Well, you didn't have an opening, yeah? So why are you hiring me? If you hire me, then you have to get rid of someone else. And, yeah, you don't have an opening." I get it. Good for him. After Howard entered MIA, he started along the scouting trail with the enthusiasm with which he tackled anything he was set about to do. His progress was so rapid that he was the second boy in the entire state of Idaho to become an Eagle Scout. How old was he at the time? Howard did not settle in his life's occupation, the practice of law, early. Oh, was he a lawyer? His many talents and abilities, as a matter of fact, might have led him to succeed in any one of a number of fields. Yeah, I agree. I feel like business being number one. Music seemed to come naturally to Howard. He took piano lessons for about a year when he was a child, and later studied the violin for a short time. Really? He played violin? Before he was out of high school, he had learned on his own initiative to play the saxophone, the clarinet, the trumpet, the drums, and the marimba? What the flip is a marimba? I mean, I'm fairly musical. I don't know a marimba. Oh, it's a xylophone. Okay, it's a kind of xylophone. Okay, well, that's not that big of a leap if you know how to play piano. You know? Wow, I didn't realize he knew that many instruments. Okay, so piano, violin, saxophone, clarinet, trumpet, drums, marimba. That's 7. That's a lot. Yeah? Geez, I play 3, and I consider myself relatively musical. And I don't play them that well. Okay. He was playing professionally while still in high school. Of course he was. And it was not long before he was directing his own dance bands, which became very popular in the Boise area. He did much of his own arranging. Good for him. So he even went in the direction of composition. Wow. When he was just out of high school, his Croonaders, a 5-piece band which he organized in Boise, went an audition and was engaged as ship's orchestra aboard the SS President Jackson. In this capacity, he made a tour of the Pacific and the Orient. Wow, well, good for him. Let's see, how old was he? Let's see, post-high school, yeah? So let's say he was around 20-ish. He was born 1907, 1927? Okay, so this is at least not during an active war. cool. But being a professional musician, while glamorous and monetarily rewarding, looked as if he would not lead him into the kind of life he wanted. So he early abandoned any plans he might have ever had to make entertainment his life's profession. Okay. So he kind of saw like the life of a musician and was like, nah, I don't really think that's for me long term. Short term, sure, but not for a long time. Good for him. Well, it's interesting because like that's the kind of decision you have to make as a young person. Is this the life I want? Or is this just okay for now? Yeah. And he made that decision of this is not the life I want, but it's okay for now. So firm was he in this decision that just before his marriage, he sold his drums and marimba and boxed up his 3 saxophones, his 2 clarinets, his trumpet, and his violin, and has not touched them since, except to play some carols for the family at Christmas time. Wow. I don't know if I would have done that. Like, clearly it's something he enjoys doing, or else he wouldn't have that many instruments. I get selling the bigger, more bulky ones. The drums and the xylophone, yeah? But then, like, wow. 3 saxophones, 2 clarinets, trumpet, and a violin. And none of those are particularly large. They will keep fairly well. Okay, I have mixed feelings on this because as someone who is musically talented, and I serve in a ward that is very, very musically not talented, and that's how I can call myself musically talented, how I became ward organist, because nobody else plays. Not because I'm particularly good, but because nobody else plays. And I feel like sharing your talent is one of those things that is kind of expected as a member of the church as well. So I am surprised he doesn't really use them at all. I feel like that's a little bit of an opportunity missed, but clearly he had other things in mind that he'd rather be doing. So I also respect someone's opinion and someone's decision to not continue in one direction because they're just, it wasn't for them. It wasn't something that they wanted to do. That was a decision that they made. So, no, I'm not going farther in this direction because I've reached as far as I want to reach. I don't want to go any farther. And that's their decision, So, okay. I understand that. Howard's early training might also have led him into medicine, really. With the encouragement of a doctor in Boise and while working in a drugstore during his high school days, he completed a correspondence course in pharmacy, thinking that this would give him a good background to study medicine. But this field he also later abandoned. Maybe he just didn't have the interest, yeah? After attending the University of Washington for a short time, where the flip did he go to Washington? Howard went to Southern California on a vacation to visit a friend. The year was 1927. He liked what he found there and remained. Okay, so he moved to California the first time when he was 20 then. Okay. 3 things influenced him. A job, a girl, and the country itself. Yeah, you can't argue with that. Because a lot of the decisions that we make as people are dependent upon the circumstances in which we are. And in this case, finding a good job, finding somebody he wanted to marry, I'm guessing his wife, and loving the country are all legit reasons to move somewhere. Yeah? Each one individually, and then let alone all 3 at once. Howard had thought that he might like to make a career out of banking, continued on page 36. So he applied for a position with the Bank of America. As one of his references, Howard gave the name of his stake president in Boise, Heber Q. Hale. The representative of the bank called President Hale by telephone and asked if he could recommend Howard Hunter. President Hale responded that young Howard Hunter was an elder in the Latter-day Saint Church, that he had a spotless character, and that he could give him the best recommendation of any young man he knew. Howard got the job. So he's a banker? Yeah, I could see that. His first assignment was the clearinghouse, and then he became a bookkeeper, and then a teller. What's the clearinghouse? I know there used to be a clearinghouse, like, by correspondence for the elderly, basically. But it was a publisher's clearinghouse, yeah? It was some sort of, like, thing that you would sign up for, and that every once in a while they'd give away stuff. Is that similar? I don't know. Bookkeeper, obviously. Teller, yeah, also legit. You have to be relatively good with numbers. So they're saying that he has good integrity, so he won't be stealing your money, but they didn't know if he was good enough with numbers to make that decision yet. Okay, that makes sense. All right, there's a picture I want to look at real quick. This is Dorothy Hunter Rasmussen, Elder Hunter's sister. Okay, I didn't know he had a sister. Now I know. Later, Howard accepted a position as a junior officer with the First Exchange State Bank in Inglewood. This chain of banks, however, did not survive the Depression, and Howard found work for a brief period with the California State Banking Department. But other things than work were occupying his attention. Soon after he arrived in California, he had gone with a friend to an M-Men Gleaner dance in Huntington Park. M-Men, I don't remember what it stands for. The Gleaners were a group of women, so it was a young men's, young women's kind of a thing, but probably for like slightly younger adults as opposed to like a YSA dance. It's a young single adult group. I think that's what it was. There he met a young girl named Clara Mae Jeffs. I hate it when they call an adult woman a young girl. Yes, she is an adult woman. Please stop this language. Clara Mae Jeffs. Clara Mae had moved from Salt Lake City to Los Angeles with her family in 1924. Okay. It was in 1931 that this young couple decided to get married, and even though Salt Lake City was a long way away and their proposed method of transportation was Howard's Model T Ford, still they were so determined to start their married life according to God's plan that they saved their money for a June wedding in the Salt Lake Temple. On the day they were to leave, Howard surprised his bride-to-be by driving up to her house in a new Chevrolet. Okay, so he saved his money. There you go. Bought himself a new car. The ceremony in the temple was performed by one of the general authorities who gave the young couple some advice which, along with the principles of the gospel, has guided their lives. Stay out of debt, he told them. Live within your means. Do not spend more than you make. Don't hesitate to walk or ride the streetcar if you can't afford a car. Don't buy anything unless you can pay for it. Save your money until you can pay cash. Well, this was also very good advice during the Great Depression, which was 1931, yes? When they got married. On the way back to California, Howard and Clara Mae talked much about the advice that had been given them, and they decided that they would follow it to the letter. Howard had paid cash for their new car. To begin their home, they bought a little furniture and a few necessities, all of which they could pay for. Just 9 months later, in the midst of the Depression, Howard lost his job, and the young couple lost their savings. Ugh. Their bank failed, I'm guessing. But because they had followed the advice given them, they were not in debt. And except for their first home, they have never gone into debt for anything. Before they would buy an item of furniture, clothing, or food, an automobile, or any other necessity or luxury, they saved their money until they had enough to pay cash. Well, that's always good advice, yeah? I mean, ideally everybody would do that. But, of course, there's some exceptions to that rule. They didn't have everything they wanted. They went without a refrigerator until after their third child was born. Can you imagine living without a refrigerator? After their third child was born. So what was that, 5 years later? Maybe 6? Gosh. For years, third child, wait a second, I thought they only had 2. Okay, now I'm confused. We'll have to find that out, yeah? For years, Clara Mae washed the sheets, the shirts, and all the clothes by hand, scrubbing them out on a scrubbing board. But they didn't go into debt. There you go. That's a lot of work. Plus, she wasn't working, yes? I mean, I'm assuming she wasn't working. That was kind of the times. So she had time to do more things around the house and to go without, yeah. In 1934, Howard, now 26 years of age, was working for the Los Angeles Flood Control District. Their first child was on its way. Howard and Clara Mae made a momentous decision. He would go back to school and get his degree. Oh, that was when he lost his job, yeah? He had now decided to make law his profession. He couldn't give up his job and still feed his family, so he decided to go to school nights, work at his regular job in the daytime, and study in between. Southwestern University in Los Angeles was the school of his choice. Okay. It was a grueling period, the years from 1934 to 1939, but Howard followed his exacting schedule summer and winter without a break. It was a busy time for Clara Mae, too. During these years, their 3 sons were born. Okay, 3 sons. Howard William Jr., who died in infancy. Okay, yeah. John J. and Richard A. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so they had 3 children, one of which didn't live to past infancy. Okay. That's very tragic. Many times the temptation to quit school must have presented itself, but the determination on the part of both Howard and Clara May won out, and he received a Bachelor of Laws degree cum laude in 1939. His average was just 2/8 of a point below the highest grade in the graduating class. Well, good for him. That's really impressive. I didn't graduate cum laude, so good for him. His scholarship record is all the more remarkable when you remember that all of his classes were taken at night while he was working days. Yeah, that's true, yeah. After another several months of intensive preparation, he passed the state bar exam in the fall of 1939. So he went to school for 4 years, yes? That's how I count 4 years. 1935 to 1939, 1934 to 1939, because that is from fall to spring, yeah, every year. So 1934 to 35 is 1 year. 35 to 36 is 2, 7, 38. No, it's 5 years. Yeah, it's 5. My bad. I can count. Okay. After passing the bar examination, Howard started practicing law part-time while continuing to do some work for the Los Angeles Flood Control District. As the months passed, his clientele grew, and he became increasingly successful. His practice had been limited to civil matters, principally in the fields of probate and business law. He had become legal counsel to a number of corporations, and at the time of his call to the Council of the 12, was a director of the Beneficial Life Insurance Company, the Watson Land Company, a land investment corporation, Task Corporation, maker of electronic components, and other industrial corporations. Okay, so he did corporate law. Well, okay, yeah, that's a little bit different than, like, public defender. Interesting. During 1940 and 1941, Howard's primary church assignment was conducting the 4th-year department of the Junior Genealogical Group from his ward. Okay, random. Of the 16 people Howard had under his charge, every one of them, as far as can be determined, was married in the temple. I am very confused how that's relevant. It sounds like he wasn't really in charge of them personally. It was more about, like, them doing genealogical work, and so them being married in the temple seems irrelevant. I mean, people who have callings tend to be active in the church, and they tend to marry in the temple. Yes, I feel like there's a correlation here, but not a causation. I'm just saying. When the El Sereno ward of the Pasadena stake was organized in September 1941, Howard Hunter was called to serve as its first bishop. Okay. So when the stake was organized, so it was no longer a branch. Yes, it was now a ward. The ward was small, only 265 members. So young Bishop Hunter had a chance to learn from the grassroots the problems involved in setting up and carrying on a ward organization. The ward members did a lot of pioneering and missionary work with the young bishop, who was only 32 years of age, directing the activities in a kindly yet efficient manner. The thing is, like, you have more leadership possibilities in a small ward, as being somebody in a relatively small ward, which is why nobody plays piano except me, of around 400 people. So it's still bigger than that one, than the one President Hunter was leading. So, yeah, you have more opportunities. Younger people are called as bishops. Our bishop right now is not yet 40. So, I mean, this happens. It happens. It's kind of interesting when it happens, but it does. And yeah, lots of missionary work here too. The Masonic Temple in Sereno was leased 2 days a week. Masonic Temple? Oh, so they didn't have a building? Is that what I'm seeing here? They didn't have their own building. They were leasing another person's building, another group's building. Regular services were held on Sunday, and Primary, Relief Society, and MIA on Tuesday. So those were the 2 days they had the building. Before long, the wards stood well up in the activities in the stake, leading many other wards, percentage-wise, in some activities. Good for them. As the ward grew, a building fund was commenced, and when Bishop Hunter was released in 1947, a site had been purchased for a chapel. Well, good for them. Yeah, so that's some good growth there. After his release as bishop, he became president of the High Priests Quorum in the Pasadena stake. Okay, stake High Priests Quorum leader, yeah? In 1948, he was appointed to the High Council of the Stake, and served in that position until February 1950, when he was called to be stake president. Okay, that makes sense. It makes sense. It's all making sense. 2 years later, an additional duty was added, that of chairman of the Regional Council of Southern California Welfare Region. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of a big job, is it not? So you're stake president and in charge of the regional welfare program? Like, that sounds like a lot. When the region was divided in 1956, he became chairman of the Los Angeles region. Okay, so they had to divide it eventually. It wasn't just all of Southern California. Now it's the Los Angeles branch, yeah? Soon after he became stake president, plans were started for a stake center. Good. Okay, so they didn't have one of those either before. The building was completed on a 7 1/2 acre site. That's big, yeah? And dedicated in June 1954 at a cost of nearly $500,000. Yeah, that sounds about right. President Hunter also played a prominent part, along with other presidents of stakes in Southern California, in helping to raise, $1,750,000. That's a lot, which was applied toward the building of the Los Angeles Temple. Cool, well, good for him. He must have been good at getting people to donate, yeah? He was also a member of the committee that organized the visits to the temple prior to the dedication. Good for him. Through the years, his faithful and devoted wife and companion, Clara May, has quietly carried on her duties in the home. Of her, he says, she has been a good mother, a good bishop's wife, a good stake president's wife. Could any higher tribute be paid a woman? Well, yeah. But, sure, yes, there are nicer things to say about a woman. Especially the fact that they didn't say the best, they said good, yeah? I would consider myself a good mother, but that doesn't mean that I'm, the best in the world, which is way higher praise. I'm sorry, that's so funny to me. Could any higher tribute be paid a woman? Yeah, there are definitely nicer things to say about people. That's so weird. Okay. My desire and my greatest ambition, Sister Hunter responds, has been to be a good wife, to be a good homemaker, and to be a really good mother. I have always thought that if I could do this, I would fulfill my mission here on earth. Yeah. We have worked hard to keep our boys close to the church. The boys and I have had wonderful times together. I've gone through their scouting with them because, Daddy just didn't have the time. See? That's a higher praise to what she was dealing with. She was doing everything with the kids because he didn't have time for the kids because of all the other things he was doing. So now think about that. Was he a good father? Yeah? I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm just saying that clearly he didn't have time to do everyday things with the kids, and that's why his wife did everything. So I consider that way higher praise of what she was doing. She was basically being two parents at once. Yeah? Anyway, the success of the home life of the Hunters is amply evidenced in the love that exists between Clara May and Howard, and the outstanding success their boys are making of their lives. Both are Eagle Scouts. John recently filled a mission to South Australia, where he served as a counselor in the mission presidency. Good for him. Their youngest son, Richard, is now serving in the same mission. Oh, they went to the same mission? Cool. John, who is now going to school at Brigham Young University, told ya? Yeah, that's why they went to Provo to visit him. And planning on a law career, is married to Louine Barry Hunter. They have one child, Robert Mark. Okay, cool. So he's a student at the university and is married, and they have a child, which is not that common today, but is something that was way more common at the time. Brother and Sister Hunter took time in their busy lives in the summer of 1958 to do some traveling. Okay, take a little vacation, yeah. But even this was tied in closely with church activity. The trip was in the form of a world tour, accompanying their son Richard to Australia, where John, who had just been released, joined them. Okay, that's cool. I like that. Okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take a family trip. We're going to bring our one son to Australia and pick up our other son who's done there, and then we're all going to go on a trip, yeah? But they couldn't all go together, but they could switch off, yeah? They made a special point of visiting the Hawaiian, New Zealand, and Swiss temples. Cool. And they attended the dedication of the London Temple. They have visited all of the temples of the church, which wasn't nearly as many then as there is now. The worth of a man can well be determined by the impact he has made on the lives of others. Let us read what some close associates have to say about Howard W. Hunter. Okay, so here's some quotes about him. All right. Of all his wonderful qualities, the thing I believe I would put first when thinking of President Howard Hunter, is his devotion to the church. In all my experience, I have never known any man or woman who is as willing to give everything he had to the church as is Brother Hunter. Okay, that's cool. If the church wants him to do something, or if anyone is in need of his attention, this comes first. The only way we could ever get him to go to any entertainment was to have a church meeting first, and then go from there. Yeah, he probably felt it was a little bit of a waste of time. He feels like an all-business kind of person to me. I've always been impressed with President Hunter because of the great dignity which he carries, not only at home but also in church and wherever he may be. The dignity with which he presides over our stake, I think, is especially outstanding. Okay, so these are people in his stake. President Hunter has great ability to teach. He is able to convey to others the things that he knows so well. I'm sure that in our stake, the bishops and the auxiliary heads have been better trained than they are in many areas. President Hunter is a great teacher. Okay. I think one of the outstanding things about President Hunter is his knowledge of the order of the church and how things should be done properly. Okay, that's cool. I've been acquainted with many stake presidents, but I don't know of any other who knows the order of the church. The order of the church, the order of the priesthood, and how things should be done in wards and stakes better than President Hunter. I thought I misread it for first. Okay, so he has taken the time to read the handbook. Yeah. President Hunter is one with the people. He leads them without being dictatorial or militant. He does his greatest teaching by listening to someone outline his course of procedure, and then, if he feels it is wrong, he proceeds to tell a story or an illustration or something that points out the error or the fallacy of a particular course of action. Okay, that's a good teaching method, yeah? The individual then concludes on his own that he was wrong. Never have I heard President Hunter say to a bishop, no, you shouldn't do it that way, you should do it this way. He always illustrates his point and lets the other person draw his own conclusion. He's a great teacher. That is really impressive, yeah? I like that because people don't respond well to being corrected. Most people hate being corrected, and they very rarely will change their opinion. And that's an actual, psychological phenomenon. It's a fallacy. People, double down, and they dig in, and they're like, no, I'm right. And you have to say, no, you're not. And here we go. Yeah, and that he's able to do it in a very gentle way that keeps people from getting defensive. And I really like that. See? I love this guy. He's so cool. I really hope there's nothing majorly negative about him. I hate it when that happens. But, all right, let's keep going. The thing that I marvel about in connection with President Hunter is his ability to say just the right thing at the right time. No matter when he is called on to speak, what he says is most appropriate to the occasion. He always comes forth with just exactly the right words. I have never known a man in an important church position who has been so universally loved. Oh, I love that. The thing that impresses me is that President Hunter is so orderly in everything that he does. He has a great mind and is able to see through any situation with clarity and orderliness that is most impressive. I like President Hunter's warm manner and his great sense of humor. Everything Howard Hunter does, he seems to do with a heart full of understanding, of love, and of devotion. I especially like President Hunter's hearty and contagious laugh. He is a great man to have behind you on the stand when you tell a funny story. As he'll laugh and then you'll feel it like, oh, that's cool. Most impressive to me is President Hunter's love and respect for the leaders of the church. Whatever they say, he accepts without hesitation or reservation. An example of this is the reverence program that he has carried on in our stake. Really? Since the general authorities suggested this be done, he has stressed it, and you can certainly tell it in the order that now prevails in all our meetings. Okay. The reverence program. I'm not familiar with that, but it sounds like, something that some wards are really striving to do is to get everyone to be quiet at the beginning of the meeting and just listen to the prelude before, as organist, I'm in charge of that. And so, I feel like that's something that some wards struggle with more than others. And so Howard William Hunter of Arcadia, Los Angeles County, California, becomes the 74th member of the Council of the 12 Apostles, chosen and sustained by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in this dispensation. His is an uncommon story. He is an uncommon man. As he travels throughout the church in the service of the Master, the saints will love and respect him as a man who loves God, who places his duty to church above all else, and who has been found worthy to be a special witness for Christ. Well, that is pretty cool. Hang on a second. I want to see just really quickly when exactly he was called. I feel like I'm missing something because this was printed in 1960. Oh yeah, he was called to the Quorum of the 12 in October 1959. Okay, so this is the first biographical article after he was called. Okay, that makes sense. Well, not necessarily the first, but like the first one from this magazine. Okay, cool. Well, let's look at the Wikipedia article real quick and see if there's any more information there, yeah? Because we have discovered that many people had little dark sides, and most of them are in this in Wikipedia, so it is nice that we have them all in one place. Anyways, let's take a look. Hopefully it's not too long, but I am enjoying this one more than the last one. So, Howard William Hunter, November 14th, 1907 to March 3rd, 1995, was an American lawyer and the 14th president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS Church, from 1994 to 1995. Yeah. His 9-month presidential tenure is the shortest in the church's history. And that's why I said I don't feel like most people have him as, like, quote-unquote, their prophet. Yeah. Hunter was the first president of the LDS Church born in the 20th century, and the last to die in it. Really? That's kind of interesting. He was sustained as an LDS apostle at the age of 51, and served as a general authority for over 35 years. Good for him. All right, early life. Hunter was born to John William and Nellie Marie Hunter in Boise, Idaho. Okay. His father, who was not a Latter-day Saint but joined the church in 1927, would not allow Hunter to be baptized until he was 12. I thought so! Hunter was ordained to the Aaronic priesthood several months after he turned 12. He is the second person to become an Eagle Scout in the state of Idaho. They still didn't say at what age. Yeah. In March 1923, the Boise ward, where Hunter had been a member since his baptism, was split, and he ended up in the new Boise Second Ward, though they didn't mention that. It initially met in a Jewish synagogue that was provided free of charge. Well, good for them. That's nice of the Jewish community to allow them to use it, yeah? Free of charge. Like, they probably just had to reserve the time. When calls were issued to build the Boise LDS Tabernacle, Hunter was the first to pledge money for the building, offering $25, which today would be $485. Once again, that's quite impressive for a 12-year-old. Hunter had a love for music and played the piano, violin, drums, saxophone, clarinet, and trumpet. And they didn't mention the xylophone, yeah? I guess they didn't think it was important. He formed a band called Hunter's Croonaders, which played at many regional events and on a cruise ship to Asia. Yep, they mentioned that. Professional career. In 1928, Hunter tried a system where he would publish train and bus schedules and charge for advertising, placing them in hotels. Well, that's clever. The project worked moderately well in such cities as Nampa and Twin Falls, but was unsuccessful in Pocatello, Idaho. After this failure, Hunter moved to Southern California. Well, he didn't just randomly move there, did he? He found a job first, didn't he? Well, he visited there, yeah, first, and then he was like, actually, I really like it here, and decided to stay. In California, Hunter initially worked in a citrus factory and in shoe sales. After a few weeks, he secured a job at the Bank of Italy branch on April 23rd, 1928. Yeah, well, that's kind of a rough time to be working at a bank, yes? That's just before the Great Depression hit, for real. Hunter studied at the American Institute of Banking while working for the Bank of Italy. Besides working in banking, Hunter was still playing the saxophone for dances on a regular basis. Good for him. In November 1930, Hunter was involved in booking for the merger of the Bank of Italy with the Bank of America of California to form the Bank of America National Trust and Savings Association. Okay. Shortly after, Hunter took a position as a junior officer with the First Exchange Bank of Inglewood. Okay, so he switched banks. This bank was taken over by the state of California and placed in a receivership in January 1932. For the next 2 years, Hunter filled several odd jobs. Oh, is that when he lost his job? Including working as a bridge painter and a laundry detergent peddler. That does not sound fun. In 1934, he managed to get a position as a title examiner with the Los Angeles County Flood Control District. In 1935, Hunter began his studies at Southwestern Law School and eventually had a successful career as a lawyer. Now, the article said he started in 1934. I'm not sure which is true. Sorry. Leadership in the LDS Church. Prior to his call as an apostle, Hunter held several leadership positions in the LDS Church. He was the first president of the church's Pasadena, California stake, where he had also served as bishop. Yeah, they mentioned that. Hunter became a member of the Quorum of the 12 in 1959. He filled a vacancy in the quorum created when Apostle Henry D. Doyle was added to the First Presidency following the death of Stephen L. Richards, a counselor in the First Presidency. In January 1965, Hunter was appointed the president of the board of directors of the Polynesian Cultural Center. Really? Wait, Polynesian Cultural Center is in Hawaii, isn't it? He lives in California. What, is there one in California? Maybe there is. I don't know. At the time, the PCC was 2 years old, had just closed its second year with a loss of nearly $500,000, and had barely made payroll the month before. Okay, so they had some serious... They didn't mention this at all. Okay, this was after the article. Okay, my bad. Okay, so he did this as an apostle then. And they are making a major loss, and he needs to save them financially, basically. Hunter reduced board membership from 21 to 10. Drew members with more broad business backgrounds and emphasized good, hard-headed business practice. In 3 years, the PCC was turning a profit. Okay, good for him. He remained the president of PCC's board of directors until 1976. Okay, so this had nothing to do with where he lived. This had to do with him being a leader in the church, yes? As an apostle, Hunter led church negotiations to acquire land in Jerusalem to build the BYU Jerusalem Center, which he dedicated in 1989. Good for him. In 1970, when Joseph Fielding Smith became president of the church, Hunter succeeded him as church historian and recorder. Yeah. Hunter held this position until 1972 and was succeeded by Leonard J. Arrington. Oh, I've heard of him. I've briefly read a little bit about him, but we will get to him when we get to the church historians. In November 1985, when Ezra Taft Benson became church president, Hunter was named acting president of the Quorum of the 12 due to the infirmity of Marion G. Romney, who became quorum president by seniority. Hunter became the quorum president upon Romney's death in 1988. Hunter became church president in June 1994, following Benson's death. Hunter retained Gordon B. Hinckley and Thomas S. Monson as counselors in the First Presidency. He offered a conciliatory message at his initial news conference, saying, "To those who have transgressed or been offended, we say, come back." Oh my gosh. Considering what we read about Ezra Taft Benson last week, and that totally exploded. I did not expect it to be nearly that long. That was a really long video, and it was very difficult to learn about because there were so many issues with Ezra Taft Benson. And so I feel like that Howard W. Hunter saying this is him saying, I understand that some of you have been offended by President Benson. Will you consider coming back, because we are sorry if that was the case. And I really liked that. Those who have transgressed or been offended, we say, come back. Yeah. It's an invitation. It's an invitation of people to please come back because things have changed now. Some of Hunter's contributions as church president include the creation of the church's 2,000th stake. 2,000 stakes, can you imagine? And drafting of the Proclamation on the Family, which was released 6 months after his death. Okay, so he started that. He set that in motion. I remember when that was released, but I didn't realize that he had started that. As church president, Hunter encouraged and emphasized Christ-like living and temple attendance. He dedicated the Orlando, Florida, and Bountiful, Utah temples shortly before his death. Hunter's teachings as an apostle with a 2016 course of study for the blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Leadership and other LDS church-owned endeavors. Okay. Hunter served in several LDS church assignments not directly related to ecclesiastical matters while a member of the Quorum of the 12. He was a member of the Board of Trustees of Brigham Young University, and closely involved with the founding of the J. Reuben Clark Law School. Okay, that makes sense since he was a lawyer, yeah? He also was a member of the Board of Trustees in the New World Archaeology Foundation, chairman of the board of the PCC, the Polynesian Cultural Center, yeah, and president of the Genealogical Society of Utah. Attempted hostage incident. Okay, I do not know about this. While preparing to speak at a CES fireside being held at Brigham Young University's Marriott Center on February 7th, 1993, Hunter was confronted by Cody Judy, who rushed onto the rostrum and threatened Hunter and the audience of 15 to 17,000 people. Judy carried a briefcase that he claimed contained a bomb and held what appeared to be a detonator-like device. Holy cow, that is terrifying. Judy demanded that Hunter read a 3-page document that supposedly detailed God's plan for Judy to lead the church, which Hunter refused to do. Holy cow. Oh my gosh. The audience spontaneously sang, "We thank thee, O God, for a prophet." Good for them. During which students from the audience and then security personnel overtook Judy. Holy cow. After Judy was taken away, Hunter delivered his prepared remarks, a talk entitled "An Anchor to the Souls of Men." Oh my gosh. I had no idea that happened. This was kind of before I was aware of everything that happened in the world, but like, that's amazing. Holy cow. Can you imagine? Like, somebody's taking you hostage and demanding you do something, and he just refused. He's like, no, I'm not gonna do it. Dude, if that guy had really had a bomb, he could have blown you up. Oh my gosh. Like, I am shocked at that. How can you have the wherewithal, this presence of mind to just refuse? Like, I don't know if I would. I don't think I would have. Like, that's amazing. Crazy. All right. Deep breaths. Health problems and death. When Hunter was 4 years old, wow, we're going back a long time, he was stricken with polio, which afflicted his back so that he was never able to bend forward and touch the ground again. Interesting. I know that it's a muscle issue. Did it, like, deteriorate the muscles of his back? I guess that must have been what happened, yeah? While serving as president of the Quorum of the 12, Hunter developed major health problems that continued for the remainder of his life. Well, the remainder of 3 years of his life. Yeah, like, he died shortly thereafter, so, including a heart attack, broken ribs from a fall at General Conference. Really? Does anybody remember this? I find that interesting. A heart bypass surgery. Yeah, that happens. Spencer W. Kimball had one too. Bleeding ulcers. Oh, they were never recovered from, because usually those are treatable. And kidney failure. Yeah, he had kidney issues. That's rough. Yeah. Hunter was admitted to LDS Hospital on January 12th, 1995 for exhaustion, and was released January 16th, so 4 days. While hospitalized, it was discovered that Hunter was suffering from prostate cancer that had spread to the bones, stage 4. Oh, that's rough. Hunter died at age 87 in his downtown Salt Lake City residence as a result of the cancer. Yeah. With him at the time of his death were his wife, Enos. Oh, yeah, okay, that's not his wife's name. Okay, so he must... I think I saw it above that he had married again. Yeah, well, hopefully they'll mention that. His nurse, who had been attending him, and his personal secretary, Lowell Hardy. Okay. I don't know why that's relevant, but okay. Funeral services were held on March 8th, 1995 at the Salt Lake Tabernacle under the direction of Hinckley, Hunter's counselor in the First Presidency and president of the Quorum of the 12. Hinckley replaced Hunter as president of the LDS Church. Yes, he did. Hunter was buried in the Salt Lake City Cemetery on October 14th, 2007 at her home. That is a typo. At his home, yeah? At his home in Laguna Hills, California. Enos Hunter died of causes incident to age. Okay, so they were not talking about him. I'm so confused. Okay, on October 14th, 2007, so this is years later, at her home in Laguna Hills, California, Enos Hunter died of causes incident to age. Shocking. Okay, personal life. In June 1928, Hunter met Clara May Claire Jeffs, a young woman from Salt Lake City, and they were married in the Salt Lake Temple on June 10th, 1931. The Hunters' first son, William, died a year before Hunter started law school. While he was in law school, they had the other two sons. They had other two sons. They had their other two sons, Richard and John, who lived until adulthood and both became attorneys. Wow, very law-ish family. After the death of Hunter's first wife in 1983, he married Enos Stanton in 1990 while he was president of the Quorum of the 12. He got married at the age of 83. That's impressive. I guess President Nelson got married at that age-ish. Yeah? So, Enos Stanton was his second wife then. Okay, so that makes sense. So, Clara May Jeffs, who he apparently called Claire, died in 1983. Okay, I got it. I'm following. Legacy. Howard W. Hunter Law Library at the J. Reuben Clark Law School at Brigham Young University, named in 1995. Howard W. Hunter Professorship at the J. Reuben Clark Law School, established in 1989 to support faculty, research, writing, and scholarship. Cool. Howard W. Hunter Foundation. I do not know what that does. I'm assuming it's some law-related thing. Howard W. Hunter Chair of Mormon Studies at Claremont Graduate University. Okay. Chair of Mormon Studies. There's a Mormon Studies? Like, I didn't know you could, like, major in that. Did anybody major in Mormon Studies? Just throwing that out there. Kind of interesting. Works. Howard W. Clyde J. Williams. The Teachings of Howard W. Hunter. Thank you very much. Okay, Howard W. Hunter, 1994. That we might have joy. I like that. Howard W. Hunter, 2005. Teachings of the President's Church, Howard W. Hunter. Yeah, okay. Cool. Two of them printed posthumously, just one that sounds like he actually wrote, That We Might Have Joy. Okay, I like that. Okay, there really wasn't anything majorly negative, yeah? I'm quite impressed. Okay, so here's my understanding of this person. So he was a very hard worker, and he kept trying new things. Sometimes he would change his mind on what interested him. But whatever he did, he seemed to be reasonably good at. He was very intelligent, getting very good grades in school, became a lawyer, passed the bar, and worked in corporate law, which is a little bit of kind of the least traumatizing of different ways of being a lawyer, I guess I would say, because it's not like you have to deal with really, really bad cases. You have to just deal with people who are very greedy. So I guess that's better, than dealing with murderers and stuff. What else? Like, he seemed to really hang on to his principles. He seemed a very determined kind of a person. I really like him. Like, he's just really a kind of person, I think, that I am able to look up to and admire. And that really makes my heart happy. Because sometimes we talk about people who you can't really do that to. And I really, really like having somebody that you can be like, this person was amazing. And he started a lot of things that then President Hinckley continued. So I feel like he really felt strongly about them, and President Hinckley saw that and continued them on his behalf. But yeah, really interesting. I really liked that. So what do you think of President Hunter? And did anybody study Mormon studies? It's so funny to me if that's even a thing. But yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I hope you did too. If you did, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.